Hold on, I have to,
You have to unmute your.
yeah.
Okay, I've unmuted my, can you hear me, Tom?
Yes,
Okay,
I was just going to unmute you.
right. So we're about to start the meeting. This is really the annual general meeting for Oakridge A. We're doing it as a Zoom meeting again this year. This is part of the president's report. And I'm having trouble getting the slides to change. Okay. Normally at a meeting where we meet in the clubhouse, we just have everybody register. And that's how we establish the quorum. We need to establish a quorum to establish that the meeting is duly constituted. And normally you just count up the number who show up at the meeting and the number of proxies. When you do a Zoom meeting, you can't register anybody, it's just too complicated. So we collected proxies. I have, we need 40% of the total unit owners. When I redid the document several years ago, I changed it from 50 to 40%, and you can't imagine how many emails I got telling me it was a mistake. Well, it's not a mistake. It's a good thing we did this, otherwise we couldn't have a meeting at this point. I only have 38 proxies, and that's it's sufficient with a 40% requirement rather than a 50%. So the meeting is duly qualified. At this point, we would normally have an election of board of directors, but we only had 7 of last year's directors who sent in a intent to run form, so they're all elected by acclamation. We have, as we did last year, have 3 directors that are full-time in the building. They're Robert, Carmen, and Lauren. The remaining 4 directors are snowbirds. That's Francois Lavie-Riquet, Paul, Tom, and myself. Tom and myself are still up north. Considering what's going on now with the new variant, I don't think I will be coming down, but Tom might. One of the requirements that the state has set up for annual meetings is that you have to send around a first notice at least 90 days, at least 60 days before the date of the meeting. And at that notice, you have to indicate the date and place of the meeting and announce or circulate the intend to run form. So anyone who wants to run from the board has to fill out that form and send it back before said date. The second notice, and as you can see, I sent it out on October 13th, which was exactly 60 days before the meeting. The second notice, it goes up 14 days before the meeting, and it includes the agenda and ballots in case of an election and proxies. So we met the state's requirements. The next part of the agenda is the approval of the minutes. I'm assuming everybody approves the minutes. If not, you can raise a hand and Tom will let you speak again. But there's no way to hold a vote. So I'm assuming that the minutes are approved unanimously. Okay, let me start off to give you a description of where the building is currently standing. The first item I will discuss is the reserves. And at the end of 2021, the end of this current year, we should have almost $500,000, 499,000. According to the budget, we're going to be collecting an additional 40,000 during this year. So we should get at the end of 2022, 540,000 in the reserves. Now, this is a graph I've shown last year, and I'm showing it again this year. It shows how the reserves have climbed over time. Before the board in charge of the building prior to my getting involved didn't think that reserves were important, and instead they took out a line of credit. The assumption was that if they needed money, they would go to the bank and borrow it. Over the time, the reserves have built. We've used it for a few things. At one point, we got a notice from the Broward County that our elevator had to be upgraded because it didn't have what was called fire return. And for that to occur, we also had to upgrade the fire panel. The total cost of that upgrade was, I think, $130,000 or $140,000. We used reserve money for that. We've also used reserve money to paint the building. That occurred a few years ago. And as you can see now, that's where we are. That's where we will be at the end of 2022. Now, the reserve has to be allocated to various accounts. So, for example, there's the roof replacement account. We're going to have to replace the roof sometime in the near future. It's going to cost us anywhere from $250,000 to $300,000, and we're collecting money every year. As you see, we went up this year from $190,000 to $206,000. The calculation that determines this is based on what is assumed to be the lifetime of the roof and how much time there is left to collect the money. Fortunately, our roof's in good condition, and the person who does our yearly maintenance thinks we can last another 10 years. Well, who knows? Same thing, there's an account for painting the building, and you see we went from $13,000 a year to $16,000 a year. The building, to repaint the building, is probably going to cost us about $30,000, and so on with the various other accounts. The regulate or the state until recently forced us to have these various accounts, and you cannot take roof replacement money and use it to paint the building. To do that, you have to call a general meeting, and you have to get an approval by, I think, 50% of the voting interest. So it's a complicated process. Unfortunately, we have, I'm using my wheel. Unfortunately, we often have things that crop up, like, upgrading the elevator. So the Florida Ombudsman, in one of his lectures, pointed out that what we should have is an account called deferred maintenance and capital expenditure. And we, as you see, and the slide doesn't come up completely, but we have 140,000, or right now we have 130,000 in one of those accounts and 119 in the other. And this gives us the ability to use that money let me get rid of this. Okay, there we are. You see, these are the two accounts: deferred maintenance and capital improvements, and that gives us the freedom of using the money in those two accounts for just about everything. Now, the Florida regulations have changed, and we can now have what's called a pooled reserve account. In other words, we get rid of all these accounts, have the money in one pool, and use it as required for anything that comes up that's appropriate for reserve funds. The one problem with that is we have to set up how much we're going to collect every year. And if we want to change that amount, we again have to get a general meeting to vote for it. Now, you may ask, why do we need so much money? Well, the problem comes about with what's called the hurricane deductible. The amount of money, the deductible on our insurance policy is dependent on the total value of the building. And the building has to be appraised every 3 years. So we had it appraised in 2017. It was $7.4 million. 3 years later, in 2020, it was appraised at $7.7 million. And in 2022, we're going to have to get a new appraisal. And that will, again, most likely increase the value of the building. Now, the hurricane deductible is a percentage of that appraised value. Last year, we had a choice of either a 2% or a 3% deductible. We opted for the 2%, which increased our premium, but meant that the first $152,000 of any insurance claim resulting from a hurricane, we had to cover. This year, the insurance companies totally abolished the 2% and 3%, have gone to a 5% deductible. So if we have a hurricane and the hurricane causes damage in the building, which they always do, the first $385,000 we have to cover. And that's why we need a reserve. I was in the building when Hurricane Wilma tore the roof off the building. And at that time, the board, I wasn't involved with the board, but the board at that time had virtually no reserve. They had to collect an assessment from the building for the deductible. The roofing companies would not start repairing the roof until they got the deductible as a check. So the roof was torn off the building, I think at the end of October, beginning of November. We were one of the last buildings to have the roof repaired, and that occurred in, I think, either the end of February or the beginning of March. So that's a lesson I learned from that experience, that you need a healthy reserve in case of hurricanes and other damages. I had this slide up at the last meeting, and I bring it up at every meeting to remind everybody that their homeowners policy should have what's called a loss assessment coverage. In the past, I think it cost $6, and what it provides is that every unit owner, if we make an insurance request for a claim, every unit insurance policy will provide $2,000 to the association. I notice in my current policy, that's no longer an endorsement, it's part of the policy. But I also noticed from what our insurance agent pointed out is that you can increase it above 2,000. Now, the reason I'm going to try to increase mine to 3,000 because I have a $1,000 deductible on my policy. So although I would have to give the association $2,000 in the event of a claim on the building, my policy would only give me 1,000 because of the deductible. So I'm going to increase it to 3,000. And then if I have to, if there is a loss assessment, I can give the building $2,000. Because of the 80 units, we would eventually collect $180,000. And that would probably go to covering damage that the policy doesn't cover. For example, it doesn't cover any landscaping damage. So if we experience damage from a hurricane and we have to make an insurance claim, we will require every unit owner to get the $2,000 from their insurance company, or the $2,000 minus their deductibles. So this will allow us to collect 180,000 or 160,000, but that takes a long time to collect. And in fact, that was the problem when Wilma hit Oakridge A. It took a long time for the board at that time to get everybody to pay their assessments. Insurance premiums, okay? There's an interesting story. I may have told this last year. When we took over, when I got involved with the board, Bernie and I met with the insurance broker, who's still extremely active in the village. And he gave us a loose leaf binder showing us all the policies, and our premium had gone down the previous year because our building assessment had gone down. Now, when we met with him, he pointed out that he doesn't have a copy of the new assessment. It was relayed to him by the president. And so we just accepted it. And we met with him the following year. And again, he didn't have a copy of the assessment. And he says, don't worry, by next year, you have to get a new assessment, and we'll have it in the book. Well, Bernie and I felt uncomfortable with that. We went ahead and got the assessment and found out that the assessment was incorrect. And I sent a new assessment to the agent. And he wrote back to me in an email, said, it's a good thing you did this, because otherwise you would have been in deep trouble if you had made a claim. So that's why there's this increase during that year. And we also got rid of that insurance broker. And as you can see, over the next few years, there was a constant rise in the insurance broker. Do you see my arrow that I see?
Yes.
You do, eh?
Yeah.
Okay. And at this point, the next year, the insurance premium fell drastically because a second company had come in to sell insurance in the Florida market, and there was a price war. And I remember Paul said, we have to make sure we don't budget for this new price because price wars don't last forever. And as you can see, it didn't. It started to rise again. And then last year, we had this significant increase, which was about 18%, I think, in the premium. And this year we had a 16% increase in our insurance. In fact, the property insurance went up by 20%. Not only that, although we're paying more and getting less insurance, you see, our deductible went from 2% to 5%. A lot of the other deductibles increased from 1,000 to 2,000. So we're paying more and getting less in terms of our insurance. And I would suggest that it's going to be the same thing next year. The insurance companies are paying out huge amounts because of the tornadoes, the hurricanes, the fires, and their losses are, as their losses increase, they have no choice but to ask for higher premiums. Now, this is just to show you that when I say we have an insurance premium, we actually have more than one policy. We have all of these policies, okay? We have property insurance, and that's where the greatest increase it was experienced. It went up by over $7,000 or 20% since last year. There's also an insurance policy for general liability and another policy for excess liability. In other words, if the liability is greater than carried by this policy, we have a excess policy. There's a crime policy, and that's dictated by Florida and has to be the amount covered is determined by how much money we have in the bank. In other words, if someone takes off with their reserve funds or operating accounts, we were insured for that. The directors and officers liability is covered in case someone decides to sue me or Tom or Paul. We have some coverage. There's workman's compensation in case somebody is hired to do some work and they have an injury. There is workman's compensation. Otherwise, we would have to cover their hospital bills and God knows what else. And then there's a legal defense, which is small policy. And that's in case somebody sues the building and it's not covered by the other policies, where we have access to free legal coverage. So that's what the policies are involved. And the big change that you can see was in the property policy. Operating account. The amount of money that's in the operating account has gone up slowly over the years. And then when the price war with the insurance policy occurred, we continued to budget as if there was no price war. And during those years, we managed to increase what's left over in the operating account at the end of every year. As you can see, in last year's increase was minimal. I show a large increase for this year, and that's because the accounting they're having terrible problems in accounting at East Coast. We have not paid East Coast fees, which is $35,000 a year since July. There's a lot of other bills that have not been paid. In addition, the snowbirds, especially snowbirds on the board, have not been around for almost 2 years, and things have become neglected, and therefore we didn't pay for it. So although it looks like we've collected a lot of money, a lot of this is unspent or unpaid. Nevertheless, it is handy to have money in the bank, because on January 1st, we have to pay an insurance premium of $60,000. So it's important that we have that money in the bank that we can pay that insurance, and we don't have to borrow it, which is what most buildings are doing. The 2022 budget, this is last year's and this year's, the roughly $40,000 a year is being deposited in the reserves from the fees that we collect. East Coast costs us about a little over $35,000 a year, and it's the same in both years. The big difference is insurance. Our insurance premium went from $49,000 last year to $57,000, no, over $57,000. Because I've kept the total budget the same, the amount we have left over to spend on building expenses this year has gone from $46,701 to $37,241. So this is obviously not going to be enough, but we do have money in the bank to cover that, whatever that difference. There's a lot of things that haven't been done. in the past 2 years, which is going to cost us some money, like replacing some of the landscaping. So the condo fees that we all pay is really unchanged from last year to this coming year. And in fact, that amount has not changed for the past 4 years. So I just listing the total assets of the building. This is the money we have in the bank as of the end of October. As I pointed out, some of the balance in the operating fund is because there's been bills unpaid and things that have not been done. So for example, I'll show you in a minute, we just approved the landscaping for mulch and to remove the palm tree. It's going to cost us $2,000. I also just contacted the roofer to do his yearly maintenance. Last year, that cost us $2,000. There's certain other expenses that have to be made. So that isn't a real measure of what we have in the operating fund. But this is the amount we have in the two funds where we have our reserves. What I do want to point out is that every unit owner has in effect over $8,000 of equity in the property. So if you're going to sell your unit, you have to take advantage of this fee. It's much different from buying a condo where you have a healthy reserve versus one where there's no reserve. Can you imagine what's happening in those buildings where they don't have a reserve and they now have a $385,000 deductible? They're in deep trouble if a hurricane hits the village in the near future. Okay, we just set up a contract with a towing company to tow cars that are illegally parked on our parking lot. And this was really precipitated by a year ago when a resident in Oakridge B had a truck that was leaking oil on his parking spot. And there was pressure for him to get the truck fixed. So instead, he began parking on the guest parking lots in front of Oakridge B that are really part of our property. So I sent him a nice letter telling him that he has to stop parking there or I would tow his truck. Now, that was a threat, an empty threat, because I didn't have the right to tow him. And I can't tow anybody until we set up an agreement with a towing company. I couldn't do this remotely because before I can set up a contract with the towing companies, now listen, guess what? You need a permit from the city, okay? Fortunately, when Paul came, he volunteered to do the paperwork and get the permit. And it only cost $5 a permit. Nevertheless, we got the permit and we filled out the paperwork. The towing company, and I sent them an email that they should call Paul when they had the sign to be delivered. One morning I get up, I get a phone call from the gate here in Montreal. They called me here in Montreal that there's a towing truck coming to my place. I said, I don't need a towing truck, I'm in Montreal. I finally figured out it was the sign. So I told the truck driver to bring the sign to Paul's unit. Calls me back. He says, I'm going to need a check for $50. I didn't know whether Paul had the $50 or not. So I sent him to the East Coast and I phoned East Coast and said, get a check prepared for this guy. So he brought the sign to East Coast. They gave him the check. And then East Coast came and installed the sign. Unfortunately, the sign is facing the wrong way. It has to be facing the street, and we're going to have to change it. Anyway, we now have the ability to tow anybody who parks illegally anywhere in our parking lot. And now, 2 years ago at the annual meeting, I showed this slide and pointed out we have a spot on either side of the entrance, which is a narrow spot,
Really?
not a legal parking spot. And I suggested that I was getting complaints from residents who had visitors who
Oh, yeah.
had mobility issues,
Oh,
and they wondered whether we could have a guest spot closer to the elevators. So I suggested at that meeting 2 years ago that when we get the parking lot paved, I would try to get those two areas, the one here and the one here, made into guest spots. Well, the parking lot was paved last year, and indeed, these were made into guest spots. You can see the yellow tire bumpers. This is the one on the east side, and then there's this one on the west side. And if you notice, somebody's parking in them, and they're not guests, they're residents, okay? The residents fight for this spot. In fact, I got a phone call from one resident who wanted to know if I could turn one of those spots into his spot, okay? Of course, I can't do that. Now, I should also point out that it's illegal for residents to park in guest spots. Okay? So I know there are residents who have mobility issues. It's much easier for them to park here, closer to the elevators. Nevertheless, the spot's not for them. I can't solve their mobility issues. I can tell them, I can recommend that if they can speak to a neighbor who's willing to let them switch temporarily. They can't permanently switch parking spots, but if they write to the board and indicate they're doing that, they can, park closer to the elevators. But we're going to eventually start enforcing the rule that residents cannot park in these guest spots. And if they persist, they will be towed. And towing is a real problem. It's expensive. They have to go get the car somewhere in Boca. So I would recommend that we leave those for the guests. Okay, I'm going to discuss an issue relating to the common AC lines that everybody wants cleaned out once a year, okay? And the reason I put this up is to point out that water flows downhill, okay? Water that doesn't flow if there's no downhill to it. This is the situation with the AC valve, common AC valve. Every unit has an evaporation pan, which is this, drains through a horizontal pipe into the standing pipe, okay? When the pipe the area that gets blocked is this area, okay? Now, there was an engineering mistake. When they installed this pipe, they should have put it down a little bit. So there was a hill. There was a downhill place for the water to run. If you're unfortunate and they installed it slightly upwards, water has to go uphill. It doesn't go uphill. It stands there. You then have a puddle in the pipe and in the pan. And this is a warm environment and algae grows. When enough algae grows, it blocks this pipe. Now, when you call your service provider because water is leaking out of your air conditioner, they're doing that because the pipe is blocked. They come, they open up this pipe, and they blow it out, and the problem is solved. And then they tell you to call the building to clean the standing pipe. Now, they didn't do anything to the standing point, yet the problem is solved. But they tell you, and I get these calls from unit owners that we have to do something with the common standing pipe. I said, how do you know that? He said, because the technician told me so. And the worst one of all is ECM, because not only do they tell them that the building has to do this, but they tell them that in future, if you call them, they're going to charge $100 to solve the problem. Because I said, but you have a contract. Well, I phoned the manager at ECM and I said, there's this contract. You can't tell them you're not going to do it. He says, no, the contract doesn't say that. There's nothing in the contract saying that we have to deal with that pipe. We do it one time as a courtesy. And I said, tell me, how do you know it's the standing pipe that's a problem? Well, he couldn't answer that because they don't know what it is. Okay. If it was a standing pipe and they cleaned this pipe, it would still be blocked. Okay. Now, this is what it looks like in every building. There are 4 units attached to this one pipe. If the pipe down here is blocked, okay, it would affect 4 units. I've never seen this. I've been in the building for 20 years. I don't know of a single example where this occurs. In fact, at one time, there was one unit owner who phoned me and insisted that it was the main line. It was in the middle of the summer. So I called the condo watchers of the 3 other buildings involved. They weren't having any problem. It was just that one unit. Also, this is a bit of hydrodynamics. If the pipe gets blocked down here and water builds up in the standing pipe, at this level, water up to this level would exert 3.5 pounds per square inch at the bottom of the pipe. If it was filled to this level, in other words, if the blockage occurred and there was water up to this point, at the level of the 2nd floor, the pressure at the bottom would be 10.5 pounds per square inch. Another, it's equivalent of having a weight of 10 pounds on this pipe if it was an inch in diameter. Okay, by the 3rd floor, but by the 4th floor, if it went all the way up to the 4th floor, it would be 14 pounds per square inch. So that's the principle of standing pipes. That's why it's done that way. If a blockage occurs, it self-corrects. I mean, and your sewage pipes is the exact same thing. You never clean the sewer pipes. They don't get blocked. And if they do get blocked, they unblock themselves because a column of water builds up behind the blockage and pushes them up. So I've argued this with the board members repeatedly. I'm the only one who feels this. So, we go ahead and we vacuum these pipes once a year. And in fact, I've been trying to get someone from the board. We bought a special high-power vac to do this. We haven't done it last year because most of the board were not in Florida. I think Francois plans to do some of it, but I'm basically trying to get Francois or anyone to take one column, vacuum it out, and then 2 weeks later, vacuum it again and see if there's any difference. Anyway, that's my spiel regarding I must tell you, nobody else agrees with me, but that's my feeling. Okay, we have a dead palm here. As I alluded to before, I just approved an invoice with East Coast for $1,900 to remove this palm and to put mulch throughout the property. And I think by adding mulch, things would look much neater and nicer. It doesn't completely solve our landscaping problems, but it would go a long way. The dean at East Coast recommended against us planting a new palm at this point because there's a disease that's going through the village, killing all kinds of palm trees. And in fact, we consulted with what's called the palm doctor because of this disease. And he surveyed our palm trees and recommended that we do this treatment for the Sylvesters. These are the 4 palm trees at the entrance. They're the most expensive palm trees we have. They're about $2,000 a tree. And I can't remember how much it costs, but it's not insignificant. And he's treating them with antibiotics, believe it or not.
Every quarter.
Every quarter, that's right. And do you remember what it cost, Tom? It wasn't insignificant. We went ahead.
It wasn't insignificant. I don't remember offhand. It was several $100s.
Oh, it's more than that. Yeah, it was a significant amount of money, but we went ahead.
It was. I remember now. It was $40 each treatment.
No, it was more than that. Anyway, whatever it was, we went ahead with it, even though there's no guarantee that it would work. So, I think it's wise not to. Let's wait until this palm tree epidemic it works itself out before we start spending money on another palm tree. Anyway, that's what Dean recommended. So we're going along with his recommendation, and that's it for me. I'm all done. At this point in the agenda, I left it open for any one of the other directors to speak, talk to the, say something. I know Tom wants to say something, so I'll turn it over to him. And
yeah, thank you, Harry.
And I think that Robert wants, Francois may want to say something. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Francois, you want to go ahead?
Okay. Yes. Not much to say. Coming back to the pipes, I agree with you, Harry. I discussed it with Paul and Henri a bit earlier. We can do this test of doing one pipe, the vertical pipe, and see, and maybe do it 2 weeks later and see what it is. But we can also redo all the pipes, even though you may think it's not worth it. At least they will be done. So I think we can do that. That's one thing. Second thing I wanted to say, the sign, yes, it's not oriented in the right way, the towing sign, but I'll ask East Coast to come back and we'll orient it so that the people, when they come in the parking, they will see it. So that's the second thing. Or else, nothing much more for me to say. I just wanted to say, Harry's not here. If you have anything that you need to discuss or whatever, I'm here hopefully until April, but we'll see how things evolve. But that being said, you can always knock on my door or stop me in the parking and we can see what we can do. That's basically it for me. By the way, Harry, good job. You did a great job explaining everything and the reserves and the accounts. So that's very good. Thank you.
I wanted to add, in terms of the landscaping, we've had several issues, especially in the back. We have a watering issue. At the time that the irrigation, the sprinklers had been installed, instead of orienting it east-west, they oriented it's per zone. So it's not where the sun is hitting it. It's all hooked up to buildings. So the problem has been in the past is if we increase the watering in the front, it gets flooded in the back. If we decrease it in the back, then what happens is in the front, it dries out. So that has been one of the problems. Second problem is, if you notice, the bougainvilleas have not been doing great over the years. And the problem has grown greater in the last, I'd say, 2 years. It's because of the infestation of iguanas. The iguanas love bougainvilleas. So we're going to have to reconsider what is going to be planted in the back if the bougainvilleas are dying. It's being treated, it's getting fertilization. So I'm hoping in another month or so, it will have some kind of results. But if it doesn't, then we have to reconsider, what is going to be planted in the back. And hopefully, with the mulch, it will upgrade our property. I mean, it will look a lot fresher, and hopefully, I'll be down there and we'll meet and we'll plan out what we want to do there. And if anybody has anything to add, please.
Let me just mention something about the iguanas. Carmen sent me pictures and told me about the iguanas eating the plants. So I called East Coast and they came and they put a trap out for the iguanas. And somebody in the building would go and release them. And this went on for about a week. And finally, the people, Dean from East Coast said, there's no point leaving a trap. And I don't know who's doing it, but it's an animal lover. And we're not going to kill the iguanas. We're just going to relocate them. But we gave up on trapping them.
A female iguana lays 30 eggs at one time.
Can I say something?
Sure.
I think somebody should write the story up. It's a wonderful story, and it's good enough to go into a paper.
I'd like to say something about the iguanas. May I?
Sure.
The property in front of us, Isleswood D, hired a trapper, of which he came out and humanely shot these with a
You're cutting out.
took away
You are cutting out.
more, but I think that was one of their ways of getting rid of them.
Well, let me point out to you that they're at real risk to running into trouble with Florida wildlife. A couple of years ago, the last year we were with Seacrest, when I came down here in November, I was told that there was raccoons patrolling the catwalks. So I got a hold of a pest control company and they put some traps on either end of the building. And we trapped, I forget what it was, a small animal. And somebody called Florida wildlife to complain that we had trapped an animal and it was there for a weekend and nobody was feeding it. So they showed up at my condo and I said, it wasn't a weekend. I'm not responsible for it. So the guy went to the pest control company with his firearm. He was going to arrest the guy who laid the trap because they broke the law. And I spoke to the guy at the pest control. He could barely speak the way he was treated, because it's against the law to trap an animal and not feed it over a weekend. Because that's what the complaint was. So can you imagine what's going to happen if they find out you're humanely killing animals? I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Well, you
I
can
am,
speak to the president of Wildwood D, because they wouldn't have done it unless they knew that it was legal to do.
People do a lot of things that they don't know what is legal or not.
They do.
I'm telling you, I've had that experience with Florida. Yeah, the guy was not nice when he came to my condo, and you weren't killing the animal. What happened was the pest control company would come check the trap every day, but not on the weekends. That's my story, my experience.
I'm told that iguana tastes just like chicken. So
Yep, that's what they do. They eat chicken.
no,
everything-
they taste like chicken.
They taste like chicken. That's right. That's true. I've heard that too.
Tastes like
Okay,
chicken.
is there any other person from the board who would like to speak?
Me, I would like to say something.
Okay, go ahead.
We don't have any wheelchair parking spots. In Canada, we have lots of them. Here, I don't see them. The reason why I'm saying is not because I need it yet, but I see some people have problems walking from their cars and going inside it. And I wonder, can we do something about that? Can something be done about wheelchair signs, parking spots?
Where would we put them? I think it'd be a good idea. Why don't you look into it, Carmen?
But how would I look into it? Tell me.
I don't know. Same way I would look into it.
You tell me what to do and I'll do it. But I can see. And now my knees are beginning to hurt. And now I'm beginning to feel sorry for those
Yeah.
who have a problem with their knees and they have a problem walking.
Now,
Because I was thinking the other day, okay, my knees are hurting. One of these days, what's going to happen? My mobility is gone. How am I going to walk to my spot? And I started thinking of those parking spots.
well, there are some residents who are wheelchair dependent,
Yeah.
and they keep the wheelchair in their condo, and they go to the elevator, go down the elevator to their cars, and then they put the wheelchair in the trunk. That's the way most people are handling it in the building.
Okay. I just thought I would bring that up. Also, the tree that you want replaced, I don't want a tree because we all know it's dying. But the replacing it, I would prefer if it would be very low because I like to see out there.
Okay.
That thing blocks my view, but I love the fountain. Oh, what a good idea. Yeah.
If there's nobody else on the board who wants to say something, let me.
Paul, you have to unmute yourself, Paul.
Harry?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Let's come back for a moment. Can we come back to the wheelchair? I sympathize with that, but we've had this problem from the day the building was built, essentially. The nature of the people that moved in here were all in that category, and eventually they were going to have that problem. To me, the biggest problem is what we're going to do about bikes that comes shooting through the parking lot and with somebody on a wheelchair trying to get to the elevator as the bike comes down at 50 miles an hour because they want to get through. Is there anything that somebody can think of that we might be able
It's
to
been
cut
done.
down on the bike traffic that's going through the parking lot to
Not
make
that
it
much
easier
bike.
for people to walk through the parking lot or to wheelchair through the parking lot?
I think, we'll answer this, but we should leave these general discussions to at the end of the meeting. We did install a gate at the east end of the parking lot, which would make it very difficult for bicycle people to get through. They have to get off their bike, open the gate, walk through the gate, get back on. And I don't know how well it's working, but the gate has been installed.
Well,
Harry,
Harry,
it's
from what I
all-
see so far, there's not that much biking going through the parking lot. People are using the sidewalk and they're crossing west, the corner at west. So you'll have people that will walk the parking lot to get to Century Boulevard, and they'll use the gate entrance. But in terms of bikes, I don't see as many bikes as I saw 2 years ago.
Okay, it's all okay. There are no bikes, period. I'm here every time. I watch it. There are no bikes going through. It's working. It's a good
Good.
job.
Good.
It is working.
Yes. I can tell you, it took us over a year to get that gate installed. And finally they installed it and they made it difficult to open, and master management called me about it and it was finally fixed. Anyway, let me go on. Paul, did you want to say anything?
No, it's just, we were talking about the tree that was going to be cut down. I read the email this morning, and I guess what really, I wasn't convinced that they were going to cut it down and take out the mulch. They're going to take out the whole tree, are they not? They're just
Yes.
not going to cut it down
No,
to the
no, they're
ground.
gonna-
No, it's removal, total removal.
Okay, I want to make sure of that.
No, it's not gonna be a stump left there. I mean, that's not what was agreed upon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me go on with the agenda and then we'll come back to general discussion. The next item I have here is for Kyle from East Coast to speak. I don't know if he's here or not.
And then it's got sick.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Kyle.
Yeah, this is Kyle.
Yeah.
Just to go over some of the items that you guys have already discussed. Yeah, the gate did take a long time. I do apologize about that, but the welder, because it was the beginning of COVID and the whole situation, he kind of dropped the ball on that. Finally, he did install it, and we did put a new lock on it to make it easier to open and close. So I'm glad that's working out good and keeping the bicycles out. The tree, I believe Dean has that on the schedule to take care of, also with all the mulch to be installed. I don't have an exact date, but I'm sure he's relayed it to either Harry or Tom on when they're going to do that. We are having a problem with our computer system. We did install a new system last January called Sage. And of course, they promised us the world and said everything's going to work perfect. And through trial and error, it is not working perfect. So we're going with a new system. We started about 3 months ago, downloading all our information, and hopefully it will be up and going starting January, February, the latest. It's going to be a good system, and it should be able to do everything that we want it to do and what Harry wants it to do at the same time. So yeah, we're keeping our fingers crossed that this system works out. I mean, we spent over $100,000 on the Sage program, and it left us very unhappy. And of course, Harry's not happy with the system either. So I do apologize about that, but they promised us the world and they didn't deliver. So other than that, does anyone have any questions or anything that needs to get done? I will get that sign fixed for you so it faces the boulevard. That's not a problem at all. Other than that,
Yeah, I have a few questions.
okay.
Kyle. I got a number of complaints from I'm in Montreal, so I don't see what's going on, but I do get complaints, and I've had multiple complaints about the condition of the garbage chute doors. And I spoke to you about it and wondered whether they could be either cleaned or painted.
Yeah, I just implemented a new plan. I have a guy that works with us, and he's going to be going around to every high rise that we do. He's buying a proper drill with a buffer end on it and some proper metal polish. And every high rise he's going to do once a month. So your guys, it'll be also done once a month. We'll polish all the metal. If there's any rust, we'll try to get the rust off. And they'll do the elevator doors also. So that will be once a month.
Okay. There was also a request for us to have the picnic table power wash.
Pressure clean?
And
I think that's on the schedule also.
Yeah, but I got a bill. Last year we did the 2 tables, and it cost us $75.
Okay.
This year I got a bill for $250.
To pressure clean?
Yeah. And we only need the one on the West End clean because Michel Lemieux from one of our unit owners cleaned the one on the east side. So the east side one he did by manually. So we need the one on the West End clean. And
okay, I'll take care of it for you.
Okay. There was other items. I can now. There is there's a gate or not a gate, but like a handrail that's come loose, and I sent a picture in the details, and that has to be looked after quickly because people can really get hurt. They lean on it, and it's not.
Is that walking into the main entrance?
I don't think it's the main entrance. I can't.
Okay, but it's on one of the entrances.
It's near 105. It's
105.
near 1005.
Right.
Okay, I'll take care of it.
Okay, and
also what we've been doing every Wednesday, I have a guy going out, turning on the building lights manually, going back in the parking lot,
right,
looking from a distance, and if there's any lights out, he's repairing them at that time.
Perfect.
So that gets done every Wednesday.
Okay.
And paint cracking on the 3rd floor, on the shoulder or on the handrail. The blue paint is cracking, in spots. Not far from.
Do you know what unit that's next to?
3013, I would say, or 3013, 3014. 3016, it's cracking there.
I'll look into that.
Okay.
So the handrail here on the 3rd floor. I don't know about the other floors.
Now, Kyle, I also spoke to you about the parking spot 3019, which was damaged by leaking car fluids. And remember, you're going to look into whether if we just painted that parking spot, whether it would fix it.
Yeah, we could pressure clean the ground right there just to try and get some of the transmission fluid or whatever is leaking onto it off.
Right.
Once we get that substance off with like a degreaser product of some sort.
Sure.
Then yeah, we can paint that spot if you need us to.
You just do that one spot. It looks ugly at this point,
Okay.
Harry?
Yeah.
Harry?
Yes.
If we get East Coast to repair this, the lady who's got the problem with the car keeps parking there. So you know, you might resolve the situation, but it'll start over again the next morning.
I'm assuming that she fixed it.
Well, I spoke to her and, you know, she wasn't very, very positive with me. So
Okay.
I'm not sure that she has fixed it.
Let's put it this way. If she hasn't fixed it, we're going to tow her out of that spot. It's not a question of, you know, we're going to fix the spot. And if it's still leaking, and it's easy to determine that, just put some newspaper under her car. Apparently.
Well, no, a cardboard would be better.
Or cardboard, whatever it is, okay? And if she's still leaking it, tell her that she can't park there and she can't park in our guest parking. Because what did happen, Paul, this occurred a year ago. And Francois spoke to me and I sent her a letter telling she'd be responsible for the damage. And so she began to park in the guest parking in front of Oakridge B. And now she's come back. I just assumed that she fixed it. If she didn't, let's determine. Apparently, she visits her mother, who's in 3019. Her mother's the one that used to make noise every night. Remember that?
Oh, she's there every day, at least 4 or 5 times a day. I mean, she takes care of her mother.
I know.
It's just that she's got a leaky car.
And let's determine if it's still leaking, the car can't come. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, we'll be able to tell if it's still leaking after we pressure clean it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Before we go to actually paint it. If it's wet again, then we know.
Yeah.
So I'll be able to report to you on that.
Okay.
Harry, this is Esther.
Yes.
What about the walkway? It's cracking. A lot of the
Which walkway are you talking about?
I'm talking about the whole walkway of like on my floor 3, it's cracking, or going down the steps, coming up to 3, there's a whole big thing that's coming apart. It's the walkway in all in our building.
The catwalk?
Yeah, that's the word.
No. Kyle?
I'll take a look at a few.
Yeah, could you take a look? Now, I've also been told that this is the first I hear about this catwalk problem, but I was told that on the first floor, and we've had this for a while, the slab is heaving between 2 slabs and can create a tripping problem.
Okay, I'll see what I can find.
Yeah,
I'll send you pictures.
Yeah, send me pictures and we can discuss it.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
On the situation of the tree, first of all, Tommy, I just wanted to tell you, you're looking for some prices. Just for your reference, the tree, it cost $350 at the time to plant. My question to you is—
Hold on, which tree? Wait a minute, which tree?
The dead one.
Right.
The fox palm that's dead.
Right, but the fox palm, there's one issue with fox palms. They are very sensitive to cold.
Tommy, let's not go there now. That's not my question, okay?
Okay.
I want to know, like, among the tens of dozens of trees, how come that's the only tree that died? But that's not my question right now either. The only thing I want to request is that if you're going to remove it, could you kindly wait until the spring or after the season, so we don't all have to live with the mess? It's not doing anything other than just the fact that it's dead. So remove it when we're gone. Like in May.
It'll take a morning to take off, to get rid of the
You're
tree. I
right.
don't know why you want to wait 3 months.
Yeah, I'd love to wait 3 months because I have it right on my porch here, and I don't if I can avoid the mess and the dirt, I'd appreciate it if it was done when we're not here, like in May. There's
They
no
only
sense
pro-
of urgency to remove it.
Oh, the
Why not?
only now, in terms of planting it, it has to be done when we are there because it has to be watered.
I'm not talking about planting. I'm talking about
Right.
removing it. So
Right, but
there's other things that are your priorities that are not getting done. So why don't you just leave this down the list? You can remove it after April.
So the only reason we're trying to remove it is because so many people are complaining about it. You can't imagine the number of emails I got of why don't you remove this dead palm? Now, I have no idea whether it'll make a mess or not. My impression is that it won't. They just get rid of it. You know, but I defer to Kyle. Do you know whether it'll make a mess to remove that tree?
Couldn't make that much of a mess. No, I mean, we're going to cut it down and haul it away. Then they'll come back with the stump grinder and grind up the stump and rake away the debris. And, you know, there should be just a little circle there that, you know, where the tree was. If you want, we can put a couple pieces of sod over it. You know, then you won't see anything. It's up to you guys. I don't see the whole thing taking more than half a day to do the whole job.
Is that okay, Saul?
No, well, do what you want. I mean, I just asked if it could be done when I'm not here. I appreciate not having to see it coming down. If you can't, if it's an urgency and it's a priority,
there's no urgency.
Do what you want. I made a request. I didn't want to discuss all the things that I would like to discuss, but I choose not to.
Okay.
I just made the one statement and take it from there.
We're only trying to respond to what people want. Okay. We have no vested interest in whether that palm tree stays or not. But there's been a lot of pressure on us to get it done. I can show you the emails I get. Why the hell isn't this tree being removed? So, you know, and
once it's done, it's
I'm
done.
just trying to respond to what people want. Okay. It makes no difference to me or most of the board members whether it's there or not. And to as far as I understand, it's a trivial exercise to remove this concept.
Let me make myself a little mobile. If you can see me, you can see the tree.
No, it's too clear. We can't see the tree. You're gonna have to go outside. Oh, no, that's better.
That's a tree in the middle of the screen.
Yeah, I see.
This is where I sit.
Okay, does anybody have any other questions for Kyle?
I have, Harry, I have one question.
Okay.
Pest control. The other day I did call because there was a problem with the ants that were after a heavy rain that came on the second floor in front of our unit. The question I have to Kyle is, when we call for those pest controls, do they do the whole building outside, or they just come and address the issue that we bring? Because sometimes I know elsewhere in the building there's also some ants that are picking up, and I was wondering if when they came to do mine in front of my unit, did they do the rest of the building or not?
I would have to ask him in that situation. Usually when somebody calls in a complaint, they will take care of wherever the complaint is. But they do the actual building once a month automatically. They'll do
Okay.
all the floors, the staircases, the laundry rooms, and they'll do the perimeter with the golf cart. But if a complaint is called in, usually they address the complaint. If you give a couple areas, of course, they'll do the, multiple areas, but they're not going to spray the whole building with
But-
just one area of complaint.
Okay, that's good. So, but you do say that they do once a month, there is a spraying being done.
Yeah. I mean, if you're here year round, I can have them put a door hanger on your door so you know when they were here and what treatment was done. Because Harry's not around, so we don't put one on his door. But if there is a board member, we can always put it on their door.
I'm not here year round, but
Okay.
Kyle,
Yes.
Robert Figuera, whose brother just passed away, so he's not here, but he's here all year, and his unit is 4001.
You want me to have it put on his door?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm not putting you on. Just like-
Very good. I'll take care of it.
Thank you very much. Well, I think that's it for us. Let me go on with our agenda for a few minutes. Normally at a meeting in the clubhouse, we try to recruit somebody to be a cookery delegate. I can't do this here, but it'd be useful if we had a few people to volunteer to just represent the building at cookery. And if anyone is interested in being a cookery delegate, send me an email and I'll put you on the list.
Also, right now, they're all on Zoom anyway, the meetings.
Yes.
So you don't even have to physically go to the clubhouse.
That's true. Now, I don't think there's any new business, and good and welfare is next, but I'm going to terminate the meeting at this point, and what we'll have is a short 2-minute meeting of the board members to elect the officers of the board, and then we'll come back and open up the floor. And
I want to bring up something.
What?
Harry,
what?
I was waiting for the business and you just passed right over it.
Okay, it's not a, but
I
okay.
have something to bring up, but
Yeah, but we'll come back to let everybody bring up what they want to bring up after we have the board meeting. Because otherwise, what happened last year is we forgot about the board meeting and I had to make it up. So give me 2 minutes. We'll have a board meeting and then you can bring up whatever you want, okay?
thank you.
Now, what the board has to do is approve the minutes of the December 13th board meeting. And I assume there's no objection. And we now have to elect the officers of the board. And I would suggest that we keep them as we did last year. Does everybody agree?
You're doing a good job.
Okay.
Great job.
Okay, and I'll terminate the board meeting now that we've had it. And we'll open up the meeting for whatever anybody wants to ask or discuss. Now, Nadine, you wanted to say something?
Yes. Yep. Our building is what, 44 years. We've tried to have a beautiful building with the gardening and the painting and everything else. I feel that it's time that we get together and change our front doors. The condo facing us, Isleswood D, I wish somebody would go and look at it. It's beautiful. They're all uniform doors, glass doors. It is absolutely gorgeous. The board has subsidized all co-owners of $1,000. And then each, I believe the cost was about $2,000 to have the doors changed. And really, we have problems with the doors every year. They warp, can't get in, the locks are broken, you have to change the locks. It's absolutely the board to consider with a show of hands or with a vote that we do something about changing the front door.
Okay, I've looked into this, Navy. And you're quite right, it will look very nice, but I have an ethical problem with that approach, because the doors cost $2,500 if you have it one, or if you have one with a sliding opening, it's I think $2,800. So if we gave $1,000 to those people who wanted to install the door, they have to have the extra $1,500. Okay. Not everybody.
You live in a condo.
Look, lady, let me state it, and then you can say what you want. Okay. Not everybody in the building can afford the $1,500. So what you have is those people who can afford it get $1,000 from the reserve fund, and those that can't get nothing. And the net effect is the people who can afford it are using the money of the entire building. So the only way this would work is if everybody, the entire building, can put in a door. That's not possible. Secondly, the reserve fund, as I pointed out, has accounts. There's no account there that says doors. Okay. So you would have to have a vote of the entire building to establish that. The only way you could get the entire building to do it is if they did the entire door. Now, I know of the two buildings that use that approach. So I phoned, and I thought it was illegal. So I phoned the Florida Ombudsman. I didn't phone, I sent an email to the Florida Ombudsman saying, we were considering this based on the experience of two other buildings in the village. And you know what they told me? They sent me to a bureau, and they said, speak to the investigator. Now, I didn't go any further. I didn't want to get those buildings into trouble. But to give $1,000 out of the reserve fund to a select number of unit owners is illegal.
Harry, you live in a condo in Montreal. I live in a condo in Montreal.
Right.
Anybody who is in a condo, you are subjected to the majority of what is voted by the total building. And unfortunately, if it doesn't, if it affects somebody, and you have to understand that we are living in a condo where the majority of whatever is decided, we have to go by. Now, you say that you have $500,000 in your reserve. There's no big deal, I don't think, to take out $80,000, and everybody would spend another $1,500, and the value of your property would increase. I mean, we're not talking about thousands and thousands of dollars. And I think everybody in our capacity in this building, I'm pretty sure that $1,500 would not consider a substantial amount of money.
You're wrong. I know.
Well, I'm wrong. I've always been wrong, but I do think I'm right as far as condo approach. It's the majority that that is granted what a subject has been brought up to. I rest my case.
Well, I do know that there are many people in the building who cannot afford the $1,500. Absolutely, okay? I know
Why
somebody,
don't we?
I know
Why don't
somebody
we?
in the building who had to get a loan because they needed their teeth fixed. There are a lot of people in the building, especially more now than in the past, whose homes are, these are their primary homes, okay, living on fixed income.
I wish you could see downstairs on the first floor, the neighbor, I think 1004, I guess. They have, what's the number? What's the store?
1001
That
has
has-
a new door.
Yeah,
there's-
and
there's-
1004 has,
Yeah.
yes, 1004.
Okay, so Nady, if you can afford it, why don't you do it? Pay $2,500.
But Harry, it doesn't do as much value if one person is doing it. I'm telling you, it's got to be a whole unit. The price makes its difference too. One person is going to cost $3,000. The whole building is going to cost $1,500. I mean, Harry, if you're against having a vote or bringing it up, then I'm sorry. I just don't think it's right.
Well,
I think we've got to give the people a chance to voice their opinion.
to have a vote, Nady,
Yes.
you're gonna have to get 66%
Well, then go ahead and get a
of the
vote.
voting in.
Well,
Okay.
let's make
Now-
a proposal and have a vote taken
Well, okay, we'll have a vote next year at the annual meeting.
next
Hold on.
year. This year.
Well, this year, you have to call a general meeting.
All right. Well, Harry, I mean, you're the president. I'm just a provider, a property owner.
Okay. I can call a meeting and we'll see who shows up.
Oh, hold on one second. Herb is asking if he could speak.
Okay.
You know, we're hearing this for the first time, at least I am anyway. When I suggest that somebody sit down and write this all up from the beginning to the end, and then send it to us and let us read it and let's know what we're talking about. Because taking a vote on what? You know, how, what, where, when, $1,500 here, $1,500. You have to spell it out, A, B, and C, so that we could all understand it, so that we could all read it, so we could all be able to discuss it, you know, intelligently. Right now, I don't know what we're talking about. It's the first time I'm hearing it.
We're on your front door. That's what we're talking about.
Herb, we're not gonna have a vote here, okay? You can't have a vote on an item that was not placed on the agenda. It's you know, it's not possible. And the all we have is proxies. And the proxies were limited. I made them especially limited proxies so that we can't vote for anything that's not on the agenda. People can express their opinions. And Nady has no idea the amount of work that's going to take to get a general meeting together that has, you know, we spent a whole 2 weeks trying to get proxies for this meeting, okay? All we got was 36, 34, okay? To get a meeting to approve a door, you need 66% of the voting interest. Okay, so it's not a trivial exercise.
Why is it? And why isn't it not 51%?
Because that's what the bylaw says. That's what the document says. You're making a significant modification to the building. And in fact, I rewrote those documents and lowered it from 75%. Because according to the Florida statutes, unless your documents says otherwise, to make a significant modification of the common element is 75%. And it would have to be that everybody takes part in it. Otherwise, it doesn't work. You see what they did in the other buildings is totally against the law. Because the front door,
What did they do?
the front door of every unit is known as common limited.
Common.
Not
Common.
It's common limited because it's
Right.
only used by one person.
Right.
The only time the association can do anything to the front doors is if they did all the doors at one time. Okay?
Yeah.
Then, because you see, it's a common element. But
Right.
but because it's used by only one unit owner, that door becomes common limited, and the maintenance and repair of a common limited element is the responsibility of the unit owner. And the only time the association can replace the front doors is if they did the entire doors of the entire building. And that's the law.
So I'm making the suggestion. Let's put it out to a vote. Whatever you have to do to prepare a vote, or you have to go to a general meeting to pass it or to vote on it, then
Well,
what is so
look,
terrible?
lady, go around and get
Yeah.
signatures, okay?
I can't, Harry, because my ability is not the greatest, and I have a walker right now, and also complaining about where my parking spot is, and everything that I seem to bring up now is all negative. So I'm not going to go around and get votes. I'm bringing it up, association, to the president, along with his committee, to investigate the idea and to come back and say, we'll have a vote or whatever you want to do, and then put it to bed. That's all I'm prepared to do.
Okay, to have a vote, I can propose it, okay? But I'm not gonna go around collecting proxies.
Harry, if I
No.
may, Harry, can I make a suggestion?
Sure,
How about a survey? And that can just, send out a survey and right away, it can be either it's a
Yes
no
or no.
vote because,
Or it's a positive.
or it's a positive. I mean,
Right. Good idea.
okay.
But
I will send out an email,
yeah.
okay? And we'll
you
see,
gotta address it properly, that there's people in the building that are considering to or want to consider changing it, and but I don't have to tell you how to
Yeah.
run.
Am I muted, or can you hear me?
I can
Yeah,
hear
we
you.
can hear you.
Can I say something? I don't
Sure.
know what our bylaws state, but I know that at home, in our condo, the doors do not belong to us. In fact, if you wanted to change the door, you can't. They're all uniform. There's 137 apartments, and they all have the exact same door. And if there was a decision voted to change the door, it would be up to the building to A, change all of the doors, making them the same, and B, paying for it out of the funds. It's not up to the individual. In fact, if I wanted to change my door in Montreal, put in a nicer door, I'm not allowed to. I'm not permitted to do it.
Yeah, but I know they,
So that's exactly what I
'Cause
just
it's in-
said, okay?
Yeah.
The doors, the only way the association can change the front doors is if they did all of them. Once you only do one, now the board has given agreement to unit owners who want to put in the new door, okay? So we're allowed, but they do it at their own expense because it's a common, just like in Montreal, the door is a common limited element. And we've given unit owners, in fact, I've written even letters approving the installation of that type of door. In fact, we've approved two types of doors, the existing ones.
Except
new
I
door.
reiterate that in our building, I was on the board for 14 years. Even if I wanted to change the door and pay for the door, I can't.
I can't, I know, but
Now, I'll talk about common areas. I'll tell you that the tree meant a lot to me, and I paid for the tree.
I know you did.
But only with the permission. I couldn't even plant the tree with the person that I wanted, and rightfully so. The building was correct. It was up to the board to unanimously accept that I can pay and plant for the tree, but they would look after the planting, and it would be the responsibility and owned by the building. It's not my tree.
I know that. I know that.
Ditto for the door.
That's right. What I'm trying to say is that's exactly what I said, okay? That's why I don't think we can have a situation where we subsidize the private installation of a partial number of people in the building. Now, I have approved people who want to change their door, okay? And if I didn't approve it, they wouldn't be able to do it. Okay, because the doors are all common elements,
Clearly.
but they're common limited. They belong, only one person uses that door, or one unit only uses that door.
But it also has an aesthetic view to the outside.
Sure.
And even though it's common, it's still private, that the condo itself should not allow it to happen unless it's approved by the administration.
Well, we have approved door
You
by
have
door.
the people.
If you want to change the door, maybe we will approve it.
Well, I'm wanted what they did at Isleswood D, and that's
What they did in Isleswood D is illegal.
well. If it's illegal, they haven't taken off the doors and put the old ones back, Harry.
Because nobody's prosecuted them. If I would have called the inspector, they would be in deep trouble.
Harry, is it possible to ask by an email to ask the opinion of people that they can answer you yes or no?
Yes, I'll do that.
That's all.
Okay.
Tommy brought it up. I think very good point.
Okay.
And then we'll know where we're going.
Let me tell you, Nadine, I have requested proxies from 80 units.
Yeah.
Okay. I got response of less than 30. Okay. When I try to get an update on our database, I requested repeated. I usually do 3 or 4 requests. And I never get 100%.
No.
So I will send it out. And but I can tell you now, if I get response from more than 30, you're lucky.
Well, let's see. We won't know unless you try.
You know.
Could I ask Kyle a question?
Sure.
I think hand up.
Kyle?
Yes.
I'm Esther Rosen. I'd like to know when you said you're going to send people out to fix the garbage doors. When is that going to start?
Should start next week.
Okay. And is it all Oakridge or is it the whole community? What? It's our building.
Well, it's all the high rises that we manage.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to do the same thing to all the high rises.
So when, okay. I just want to know when you're going to be in our building.
Yeah, it should be next
What's
week.
the difference?
I
when
spoke
it's
to the
gonna
guy
be
this
our
morning
building?
about it, so
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Kyle,
Yes.
do you have any opinion on what they did in those 2 buildings where they subsidized some of the doors?
Yeah, I mean, I know they did something with the reserve and, but I don't know how legal it is.
Yeah, okay.
You know, I mean, it sounds good on paper, but I don't think the building is responsible to kick in anything because like you said, they are the unit owner doors. They belong to the unit owner. The only time a door is the building's responsibility is if there's a named storm, hurricane, and they get damaged. That's the only time the building insurance will do anything about the doors. Other than that, it's always been up to the unit owner themselves to replace or repair their own door. So, I mean, that would have to be, like you said,
Yeah.
it used to be a 75% vote. You dropped it to a 66. You know, you'd have to go out to vote and see how many people are even interested. If it doesn't pass, then there's your answer.
May I just say something, if you would? The $1,000 is an incentive so that everybody doesn't have to look at $2,500 or $2,800 out of their pocket.
No, I understand completely. I mean, they
Let me ask
came
a
up-
question. Why should the association fork out
And the
$80,000? Why should the association fork out $80,000 to subsidize the doors? I don't understand the logic.
Well, I believe that the other two buildings in mention did it as a,
Pay $2,800.
you know, hey, we'll do this if you pay the rest, you know, kind of trying to get them to do it.
Make it look nicer.
Well, of course, it's going to look nicer, but, you know, is it really legal to use reserve money, like Harry was saying, for an item that's not even in the reserves to do in the first place?
Right. All right.
I mean, if you add a line item to the reserves and start funding for it, you know, then you can use that line item for it.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's something you would have to prepare in advance.
Using
Spread
that
it over.
logic, what would happen? What would be your feeling if I said I want to paint my door red?
Right.
I mean, it's
Well,
my
all the doors
door.
have to be,
It's my
all the
door.
doors
I'll
have-
pay for it. Why can't I paint it red?
all the doors have to look uniform per your bylaws.
Beautiful
So if you-
or the same or
Uniform.
or
The same
the
color.
same. That's the
Yeah.
point. That's why it falls under the buildings. I think it's very generous to let somebody, even at their own cost, replace a door. Because I don't find anything beautiful about walking down the catwalk and seeing 2 or 3 doors that are different from the uniformity of the rest of the building.
Well, see, that's the problem right now. The doors that are installed in the building are not up to code, and you cannot purchase them anymore. So if a unit owner's door does go bad or rusts out to the point where it cannot be repaired anymore, then they have to put a door that's up to code, which would be a hurricane-proof door, in its place. And really, the board still has a decision on which door you can put in there. They can put guidelines down, pick 1 or 2 different doors, and you would have to go with that choice.
That's what we did.
Otherwise,
That's what we
Yeah.
did. Ron.
Right.
Yeah, I would hope
I
so.
mean, according to your bylaws, it does state that the building has to be uniform. So,
None
you
of
know,
that.
and the jalousie doors are just not available anymore. They're illegal.
Also saw, the door is a common limited element. So the repair and maintenance is the responsibility of the unit owner. But they can't make changes, you know, without permission, because it's a common element.
Again, like the patios in the back or my tree, we could do it with the building's permission at our cost, but
That's
to the
right.
building's approval, to the building
Exactly.
standard.
That's right.
Exactly.
So we give permission to those people who have changed their doors.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, you shouldn't have. You should have asked to wait and they would all have uniform doors.
Well,
Let somebody do
there's-
door.
it's, you're not listening.
No, I'm
Nate.
listening.
It's not gonna happen, okay?
You're predicting it's not going to happen, so it won't happen.
No, I mean, look,
Purpose before even
I,
going.
I know the difficulties, okay? You know, when we changed, I rewrote the documents and I had to get the approval of the unit owners. I needed 75% approval.
But
I spent a month and a half getting proxies. I walked from door to door. Okay?
I'm very sorry, but
It took a massive effort to get that approval.
and unless you change, it's not going to get done.
Look, I know this building. I know the people in it.
Never mind, Harry. You don't know their bank book, okay?
Hey, how about stopping to flog the same thing over and over again? You said your piece. Harry said what he's going to do. Let's leave it. Okay, enough is enough of this. It's the same thing going over and over again.
You're right.
You haven't been involved in the building. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I was for about 10 years. You have to go door to door to solicit people to sign anything. And you have to literally twist their arm. And there are people in the building that can't afford it. I run into the same problem in Montreal. I'm on the board. Okay? If you have a half a dozen people that can't afford it, are you going to penalize them and throw them out? It's a hard job the board has to decide what they want to do. And let them decide, let them work on it. And if they decide to take a straw vote, beautiful. But enough of this. The whole thing is being taken up about the doors. Let's talk about other stuff instead of the doors.
Well, say your piece, Harry.
I did. Thank you, sir.
You have something else to talk about? Well, let's put it
I
together.
don't have anything else, but that's all we keep talking about is doors and doors and doors.
Right. Well, that's because that's
Harry
what
said what he'll do, and good enough.
I feel it's an important thing, and it'll increase the value of everybody's property.
And your taxes will go up also.
No, I wouldn't worry about that.
I know.
And I don't think you should either.
Next
I said
subject.
my piece. That's
Yeah,
it.
next subject.
Do you think I can go? Is there anything important to talk about? If not, let me go. Is that okay?
Well, does anyone else have anything to say?
Be well, everybody. I'm off. Bye. Thanks. Thank you very much for the meeting, Harry.
Thank you so
take
Everybody
care.
be well.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Okay.
Happy
Nice to-
holiday.
Nice to see you all.
Nice to
Nice.
see you too. Stay well.
Can-
Stay
Can I
safe.
ask a question to Kyle? It's Saul Edelstein, 2007. Kyle, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Okay, my door is pretty lousy. It doesn't look good. Does your company, does it East Coast, if I call them, would they come and give me an estimate to repair the door that I have? It's rusty and it doesn't look good. Would they repair it?
Yeah, we can come and look at it and if it's something that they can fix, they'll let you know.
Okay.
If it's something that cannot be fixed, they'll also let you know.
Right,
Hey,
okay.
Yeah, just
Okay.
call the office, put in a work order,
I will.
and
Okay.
they'll come out.
Thank
Okay.
you.
This is Saul's
sir.
wife Doris speaking. I'd like to say a word. I love the jealousy doors because I like having the cross breeze coming through the house. The new doors are either solid, they're totally closed, or they only open up, which Islewood D has, they only open up at the bottom. I will lose what I enjoy. The door I know is old, but I like it. That's my piece.
Yeah,
Thank
let me say something else. There is one company in Fort Lauderdale that repairs the jalousies. I had my jalousies replaced.
We had our
Good job.
jealousies repaired also quite a number of years ago.
Take it easy, everybody.
Yes.
I'm signing off. Shelley's
Okay.
signing off.
I'm
Happy New
signing
Year.
off.
Happy New Year.
Yes.
Stay well,
Okay.
stay safe.
Okay,
Bye.
bye-bye.
Bye.
Does anybody else have some questions or comments?
I only have one thing to say.
Yes.
I
Good to
just
see
want to
you.
thank all the board members for all their hard work from a long distance or when they finally got here. I just really appreciate working with all of you, and I just think that you guys do a great job to help make this building a very good place to be. So I just want to relay my feelings and my gratitude, and I really hope that come 2022, it will be a much better year for all of us.
Yeah.
And I hope that all this hardship, and heartache, and loss and suffering that we've all had to witness personally or among our family and friends, that hopefully next year we'll see an end to all of this and we'll be able to enjoy each other's company again. So thank you.
Thank you for what you just said.
Hopefully we will have a happy 2022.
Amen.
Well said, Lorraine. Well said.
Thank you.
Well said.
And Harry, thank you for everything you do, including doctoring from a distance.
Okay. Is there
I don't
anybody-
say that in jest. I'm totally serious.
I know.
All right, all of you.
All right, take care, everybody.
Good to see you.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, I think since there's nobody else has anything to say, we'll terminate the meeting. Thank you all for coming.
Harry,
Yes.
I will speak to you on the phone.
Yes, perfect.
All right?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, take care.
You too. And I'm
Good
gonna,
meeting.
yeah,
Excellent meeting.
I thought it went well.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, Harry, take care.
I'm gonna end the meeting, okay?
End it. Okay.